My family missed my wedding but rented a luxury yacht for my sister's engagement. I cut contact and moved on with my life. 2 years later they saw a billboard for my company, and my mom called me in tears asking, "Why didn't you tell us?" My wedding day was supposed to be perfect, but it started with a gut punch that left me feeling utterly abandoned. Little did I know that painful absence would become the catalyst for everything I would eventually become. The morning of our wedding dawned with a sky so impossibly blue it felt like a dream. Sunlight spilled into the beautiful old barn in Lancaster County, the venue Trevor and I had instantly fallen in love with. But as I stood alone in the bridal suite, my dress hanging, catching the light, a hollow feeling settled deep in my chest. My phone sat silent on the vanity, no calls, no messages. And I knew why. My parents and my sister weren't coming. It had been 3 weeks earlier when Mom called, her voice carrying that specific tone she used when delivering news she considered merely inconvenient rather than utterly devastating. "Pamela, honey," she'd started, "I don't think we can make it to your wedding." I was finalizing the menu with our caterer at the time. I remember gripping the phone, my knuckles white. "What do you mean you can't make it? It's in 3 weeks. "Well," she'd continued, completely unfazed, "Cassidy's boyfriend is planning to propose next month. They're flying to Miami for the weekend, and we promised we'd help with some of the arrangements." "You promised to help with arrangements for a proposal that hasn't even happened yet," I shot back, the words tasting bitter, "instead of attending your own daughter's wedding?" "Don't be dramatic," she'd chided. "Jacob's family owns that investment firm, and they're very particular about traditions. His parents are renting a yacht for the proposal weekend, and they invited us to join. It would be rude to decline." The caterer, bless her, had quietly excused herself. I barely even noticed. "So," I said, trying to keep my voice steady, "you're skipping my wedding, my actual wedding, for a proposal that might not even happen, for Cassid's boyfriend's parents, whom you've met, what, twice?" "3 times, Mom corrected, as if that made a difference. "And don't be ridiculous. Of course, he'll propose. He's already shown us the ring. It's 4 carats, Pamela. 4. Besides, your wedding is so simple. Trevor's parents are covering most of it anyway, aren't they?" Simple. The word stung. She said it like it was shameful. Trevor and I had planned everything ourselves, paid for most of it ourselves. We chose what mattered to us. Yes, his parents had helped, generously insisting on covering the venue, but they'd done so with genuine enthusiasm, not the thinly veiled disappointment my own family couldn't seem to hide. "Trevor's parents are supporting our decisions," I clarified. "They're not buying our wedding." Mom sighed. "I don't understand why you're getting so upset. It's not like this is unexpected, Pamela. You've always done things your way, against our advice. If you dated Jacob when he showed interest in you before Cassidy, maybe you'd be the one with the yacht proposal." That conversation burned inside me as I stood there in the quiet bridal suite. Just then, Trevor's mom, Diane, knocked softly. She walked in, her smile warm, carrying a box of pastries and coffee. "The makeup artist will be here in 20 minutes. I thought you might want breakfast." She paused, her eyes softening as she took in my expression. "Pamela, sweetie, what's wrong?" "Nothing," I lied, forcing a smile. "Just wedding day jitters." Diane set the box down and took my hands in hers. "Your parents?" I nodded, unable to speak past the lump in my throat. "I'm so sorry," she said, squeezing my hands. "But I want you to know how proud Richard and I are to welcome you into our family. We couldn't have dreamed of a better partner for Trevor." Her words were a balm. The ceremony itself was beautiful in its intimacy. 58 guests instead of the 61 we'd planned for. Trevor's eyes welled with tears as I walked down the aisle on his father's arm. Richard had insisted on escorting me when he learned my own dad wouldn't be there. My college roommates, Emma and Jasmine, stood beside me as bridesmaids, and Trevor's brother, Marcus, was his best man. We exchanged vows under an arch of wildflowers and fairy lights. The reception featured local farm-to-table food, craft beer, and a playlist we'd spent weeks perfecting. We danced under market lights with the people who had chosen to celebrate us. It was perfect, despite the empty seats at the head table. Our honeymoon in Maine was a much-needed escape. We spent a week in a coastal cottage near Bar Harbor, hiking Acadia National Park by day, falling asleep to the sound of waves by night. We completely disconnected from our phones, from social media, from all the family drama. For 7 glorious days, it was just us, building the foundation of our marriage away from outside influences and expectations. The cottage owner, Eleanor, was this silver-haired artist who lived on the property. She took an immediate liking to us, sharing local secrets no tourist ever found, a hidden cove teeming with starfish, a bakery with wild blueberry pies, a secluded cliff path with views all the way to Canada. "You two have something special," she told us one evening, sharing wine on her porch as the sunset painted the sky in fiery oranges and pinks. "I've been watching couples come through here for 30 years. I can tell which ones will last." "What's our secret?" Trevor asked, intertwining his fingers with mine. Eleanor smiled, the lines around her eyes crinkling. "You look at each other the same way, equal. Some couples, one's always looking up, one looking down. Never works." She gestured to us with her glass. "You two, though, eye to eye." Her words stayed with me throughout our stay. Asterisk eye to eye. Equal, asterisk it was everything my parents' marriage wasn't. Everything my relationship with my family had never been. On our last morning in Maine, Eleanor pressed a small package into my hands. "Wedding gift," she said. "Open it when you need reminding." I tucked it into my suitcase, planning to open it once we were home. 2 days after we got back from our honeymoon, I received a text from my sister. No congratulations, no questions about the wedding. Just a photo of an enormous diamond ring on her finger, followed by "he proposed." "Mom and Dad rented a yacht with Jacob's family for the whole weekend. We're thinking June wedding at the Hamilton estate. Save the date." The pain that shot through me was unexpectedly physical. A tightness in my chest made it hard to breathe. After everything, after missing my wedding to prepare for this very event, they couldn't even acknowledge what they'd done. No apology. Not even a perfunctory "wish you could have been there." Just celebration and the expectation that I would play my assigned role in Cassidy's perfect life story. I stared at the screen for several minutes before setting my phone face down on the kitchen counter of our new apartment. Trevor found me there later, still standing in the same spot. "Cassidy got engaged," I said flatly. He wrapped his arms around me from behind, resting his chin on my shoulder. "Are you okay?" "They rented a yacht, Trevor," I choked out. "My parents, who couldn't attend their own daughter's wedding, rented a yacht for my sister's engagement." "I'm so sorry, Pam." I turned in his arms, suddenly remembering Eleanor's package. "Wait here." I retrieved the small parcel from my suitcase, still mostly unpacked. Carefully unwrapping it, I found a hand-painted stone inside. On one side, an intricate compass rose. On the other, words painted in delicate script: "The direction of your life is always your choice." A card tucked beneath read: "The most important journeys often begin with walking away. Trust your compass." Clutching the stone, I returned to the kitchen. Trevor stood where I'd left him, concern etched on his face. "No," I said, straightening my shoulders, my voice newfound and firm. "I'm done being sorry. I'm done hoping they'll change." Memories flooded through me as I spoke, years of different treatment between me and my sister suddenly crystal clear. When Cassidy turned 16, my parents surprised her with a brand new car. When I turned 16 a year before, I got driving lessons and was told to save for my own vehicle. For my high school graduation, they hosted a small dinner at home. For Cassid's graduation the following year, they rented a venue and invited 50 guests. At every turn, the pattern was consistent: what Cassidy received freely, I had to earn or do without. "They've shown me who they are my entire life," I continued, my voice steadier than I expected. I just refused to believe it. Trevor took my hands, his gaze direct and unwavering. Whatever you decide, I'm with you. But make sure you're doing it for the right reasons. Not from anger, but from self-respect. His wisdom struck me deeply. This wasn't about punishing them. It was about protecting myself. About creating space for a life where I wasn't constantly striving for approval that would never come. That evening, I composed a brief email to my parents. I've spent years trying to earn your approval and attention. I've made excuses for your behavior and blamed myself for not being good enough. I can't do it anymore. I need space to build a life where I'm valued. Please don't contact me for a while. I'll reach out when I'm ready. Pamela. I sent a similar message to Cassidy, adding a brief congratulations on her engagement, but explaining I wouldn't be attending her wedding. Then, I blocked their numbers, removed them from my social media, and turned toward the future I was building with Trevor. The initial days of separation were harder than I'd anticipated. Habits formed over decades don't dissolve overnight. I caught myself reaching for my phone to share good news, before remembering there was no point. Unexpected waves of grief would wash over me at random moments, not grief for what I'd lost, but for what had never existed in the first place, unconditional family support. Trevor, ever pragmatic, suggested therapy. This is a major life change, Pam. Having someone neutral to talk to might help. Initially, I resisted. My family had always dismissed therapy as paying strangers to listen to your problems. But that dismissive voice in my head was exactly what I needed to escape. I found Dr. Melanie Santos, a family systems specialist. What you're describing is a common pattern, she told me during our third session. Golden child versus scapegoat dynamics. It's not about who you are, but the roles you were assigned. I don't feel like a scapegoat, I objected. They never blamed me for anything. The scapegoat isn't always blamed, she explained. Sometimes they're just the one who's expected to accommodate, to understand, to make do with less. The one whose needs are secondary. Her words illuminated a lifetime of experiences, how I'd learned to downplay my needs, to celebrate Cassid's moments in the spotlight while minimizing my own disappointments, how I'd internalized the message that wanting more was selfish. Your decision to step back isn't abandoning them, Dr. Santos said. It's refusing to participate in a dynamic that hurts you. That's healthy. Through weekly sessions, I began untangling the complex web of family conditioning. Some days brought anger, righteous, cleansing anger that burned away years of self-doubt. Other days brought sadness so profound it felt bottomless. But gradually, the emotional storms became less frequent, less intense, making space for something new, possibility. Trevor and I established routines that nourished our relationship. Sunday morning hikes in state parks, cooking ambitious recipes on Wednesday nights, a monthly adventure day where we'd explore somewhere new. We built traditions that were uniquely ours, untethered from family expectations. His parents, Diane and Richard, invited us for dinner every other Friday. Unlike my family's formal gatherings, where conversations were performances and criticisms disguised as concern, these dinners were relaxed, filled with genuine interest and easy laughter. Diane never compared Trevor to his brother Marcus, never implied one was more valuable than the other. Richard spoke of both his sons with the same pride. You seem different here, Trevor observed as we drove home after one such evening. More relaxed. I'm not bracing for judgment, I realized aloud. With my family, I always felt like I was auditioning for approval. 3 months into my family separation, I received an email from Cassidy. It had bypassed my blocks by coming from her work address. Pamela, I don't understand what's happening. Mom and Dad won't talk about why you're not speaking to them. They just say you need space. My wedding is in 4 months and my maid of honor spot is empty. You're my sister. Whatever they did, please don't punish me for it, Cass. The email revealed so much in what it didn't say. She assumed our parents were at fault without knowing details, suggesting a pattern she recognized. Yet, she still expected me to fulfill my designated role in her life, regardless of my feelings. I drafted and deleted 5 different responses before settling on honesty. Cass, I'm not punishing you. I'm creating space to heal from patterns that have hurt me for years. The different treatment we've received isn't your fault, but it's not something I can pretend doesn't exist anymore. I hope your wedding is everything you dream. I hope Jacob makes you happy, but I won't be attending. I need this boundary right now. Perhaps someday we can build a relationship as equals, not as golden child and shadow sister. Pamela. She didn't reply. Through mutual acquaintances, I later learned she'd asked her college roommate to step in as maid of honor. Their wedding photos appeared in a regional lifestyle magazine, my parents beaming in the front row, the reception at the Hamilton estate every bit as lavish as expected. I felt a twinge of something as I flipped through the online gallery. But it wasn't regret. It was recognition of how different our paths had become. Meanwhile, my own path was taking unexpected turns. The startup incubator program accepted my application 3 months later. While completing my MBA, I developed a business concept for customizable subscription wellness boxes that combined Eastern and Western approaches to health. The idea had started as a passion project, a way to cope with the stress of coursework and family disappointment. The seed had been planted years earlier during my undergraduate studies in biochemistry and business. I'd witnessed firsthand the limitations of conventional medicine when my roommate Emma developed chronic fatigue syndrome. Doctors prescribed medication after medication, each treating isolated symptoms without addressing the systemic imbalance. Frustrated, Emma started exploring alternative treatments, acupuncture, adaptogenic herbs, nutritional therapy. Western medicine sees the body as separate systems, she'd explained one night. Eastern medicine sees everything as connected. I'd been skeptical, my science courses emphasizing empirical evidence. But watching Emma gradually reclaim her energy sparked something in me, curiosity about healing traditions my education had dismissed. My grandmother, Juanita, had planted those seeds even earlier. Born in Fuzhou province before immigrating to America in her 20s, she maintained her traditional practices. As a child, I spent summers with her, fascinated by her medicine cabinet, a blend of prescription bottles and mysterious jars of dried herbs, roots, and fungi. Balance, she'd tell me in her accented English, demonstrating how to prepare ginger tea for my upset stomach instead of reaching for Pepto-Bismol. Body knows how to heal itself. We just remind it. My parents had tolerated her old country remedies with barely concealed disdain. Mom, she needs real medicine, my father would insist. My grandmother would smile, step aside for the pharmacy solutions, but slip me her teas and tonics later, winking conspiratorially. After her death when I was 15, I inherited her journal of remedies, handwritten. Notes in a mixture of Mandarin and English. I kept it hidden, knowing my parents would dismiss it as superstitious nonsense. But throughout college and beyond, I found myself returning to those pages, especially during stress or illness. My business concept for Zenita Wellness had emerged from this confluence, my biochemistry background providing scientific understanding, my grandmother's traditional knowledge offering alternative approaches, and my business education supplying the framework to merge them effectively. The model combined personalized supplement regimens, adaptogenic herbs, and educational components. My MBA professors had been enthusiastic, but my family dismissed it as another of my impractical ideas. Dad pushed me toward corporate finance. Mom suggested pharmaceutical sales, close enough to your interest, but with actual money. The wellness space is overcrowded, my father had argued during a tense dinner. And these alternative approaches are just trends. 5 years from now, people will be on to the next fad. It's not a trend, Dad, I countered. It's a fundamental shift in how people approach health. Integrative medicine programs are opening in major hospitals. Insurance companies are starting to cover alternative treatments. Pamela always needs to be different, my mother sighed to Cassidy, as if I weren't sitting right there. Remember when she insisted on taking biochem instead of communications like we suggested? Cassidy, majoring in communications at the time, smirked. Not everyone can handle the hard sciences, Mom. The conversation devolved from there. My evidence-based arguments dismissed as stubbornness, my passion interpreted as rebellion. I left that dinner with a familiar heaviness. Trevor, though, believed in me completely. He helped me draft the business plan, stayed up late discussing marketing strategies, and encouraged me to apply to the incubator program. His support never wavered, even when I was rejected by the first 2 programs. "Those rejections aren't about your concept," he insisted after the second disappointing email. "They're about fit and timing. The right program will recognize what you're building." He'd been right. The third application, to a program focused on health innovation, struck the right chord. The acceptance email arrived on a Tuesday morning while I was working at my consulting job, the practical position I'd taken after graduation to build savings. I called Trevor immediately. "They accepted us. $15,000 in seed funding and 6 months of mentorship." "I knew they would," he said, his voice confident and warm. "This is just the beginning, Pam. The program required full-time commitment, meaning I'd need to leave my consulting position." The thought terrified me. My parents' voices echoed in my head: irresponsible, risky, foolish. For a moment, I almost reached for my phone to seek their advice, a reflex from decades of conditioning. Instead, I called Dr. Santos and scheduled an emergency session. "What's holding you back?" she asked after I explained my dilemma. "Financial concerns, practical considerations, or fear of proving them right if you fail?" Her question crystallized the internal conflict. "The last one," I admitted. "If this doesn't work, they'll see it as confirmation that they were right about me all along." "And if it does work," she challenged, "will they see that as confirmation they were wrong?" I laughed humorlessly. "Probably not. They'll either claim they supported me all along, or find some way to minimize it. So, their opinion can't be the deciding factor," she concluded. "It's a no-win scenario if that's your metric for success." She was right. I'd been free from direct contact with my family for months, yet still unconsciously seeking their approval, still fearing their judgment. True independence meant making decisions based on my own values and assessments, not in reaction to their expectations. I gave notice at my consulting firm the following day. My boss, Patricia, expressed genuine disappointment to lose me, but offered to connect me with potential investors. "Your concept has legs, Pamela. With the right backing, you could really disrupt the wellness industry." 2 days later, I signed the paperwork for the incubator program. That evening, Trevor surprised me with a celebration dinner on our apartment balcony, string lights, champagne, and takeout from our favorite Ethiopian restaurant. "To Zanita Wellness," he toasted, his eyes reflecting the twinkling lights. "And to my brilliant, brave wife who's about to change how people think about health." As we clinked glasses, I felt a profound sense of alignment with myself, my values, my vision. For the first time in my life, I wasn't split between who I was and who others wanted me to be. The relief was exhilarating. The next 6 months passed in a blur of 18-hour workdays, prototype development, market research, and endless meetings. Trevor took on extra photography clients to supplement our income while I built the foundation of what would become Zanita Wellness. The name combined Zen with the last 3 letters of my grandmother's name, Juanita. By the end of the incubator program, we had secured an additional $250,000 in angel investment, finalized our supply chain, and launched a beta version of our platform with 200 test customers. The feedback was overwhelmingly positive. Our customer retention rate hit 92% after the second month, nearly double the industry average. 18 months after launching, we closed a series of funding round of $2.3 million. By that point, our subscriber base had crossed 50,000 users. 6 months later, after being featured in Women's Health, Forbes 30 Under 30, and several major morning shows, our numbers jumped to 75,000 subscribers. Now, approaching our 3-year anniversary, Zanita was growing faster than we had ever anticipated. The billboard campaign was Trevor's idea. "We should celebrate hitting 100,000 subscribers with something bold," he suggested during a rare weekend getaway to the Finger Lakes. We've been so consumed with the business that we've barely taken time to process our success. Billboards are expensive, I countered, though the idea appealed to me. An old-school move for a digital-first company. Sometimes old-school cuts through the noise, Trevor said, refilling our wine glasses. Besides, your story is powerful. Female founder, innovative concept, exponential growth. Your face deserves to be 40 feet tall in major markets. I laughed at that, but agreed to discuss it with our marketing team. They loved the concept immediately. We planned a series of 5 billboards in strategic locations across the Northeast featuring a simple design, my portrait, alongside our tagline, Wellness Reimagined, with the Zenita logo and website. The Philadelphia billboard went up first, positioned strategically on I-95, where it couldn't be missed by commuters, including those traveling between my hometown and the suburbs where my parents still lived. I didn't plan it as a statement to my family. They weren't even on my radar anymore. In the 3 years since I'd cut contact, I'd moved beyond wondering if they ever thought of me. The hollow ache had gradually filled with purpose, achievement, and genuine connection. Trevor and I had built a home filled with laughter and mutual respect. We'd found our people, friends who showed up, celebrated our victories, and supported us through setbacks. Patricia from my old consulting job had become a close friend and informal advisor. Emma and Jasmine remained constants in my life. Trevor's parents treated me like a daughter, not an afterthought. The phone call came on a Wednesday afternoon while I was reviewing quarterly projections with our CFO, Ellen. My assistant, Megan, knocked on my office door, her expression unusually tense. "I'm sorry to interrupt, but there's a woman on line 1, insisting she needs to speak with you. She says she's your mother." My hand froze over the spreadsheet I'd been annotating. Ellen glanced between Megan and me, sensing the sudden shift in energy. "Should I tell her you're unavailable?" Megan asked, already reaching for the door. I drew a deep breath. "No, I'll take it." "Ellen, can we finish this in an hour?" After they left, I stared at the blinking light on my desk phone for nearly a minute before picking up the receiver. "This is Pamela Collins." I'd taken Trevor's surname after our wedding, shedding the last formal connection to my family of origin. "Pamela, it's Mom." Her voice sounded exactly the same, yet somehow foreign after 2 years of silence. I know, I kept my tone neutral, professional, as if she were just another business contact. "We saw the billboard on our way to Cassid's house yesterday. Your father nearly drove off the road." She gave a small, awkward laugh that died quickly in the silence. "Is that why you're calling? To discuss my company's marketing strategy?" "No, of course not. We're calling because..." Her voice broke. "Why didn't you tell us, Pamela? Your own family? We had to find out from a billboard that you're some kind of successful businesswoman now." The sheer audacity of her question stole my breath for a moment. 2 years of silence, preceded by a lifetime of conditional love, and she expected what? A press release sent to their home? Regular updates on my achievements despite their complete disinterest? "I did tell you," I said finally, my voice calm. "For years, I told you about my interests, my goals, my vision. You weren't interested." "That's not fair. We always wanted what was best for you." "No," I countered, my voice gaining strength. "You wanted what was easiest for you to understand and brag about. Cassid's fiancé's family's wealth? Easy to understand. My passion for integrative wellness? Too complicated, too risky. Pamela, please. We've missed you terribly. You disappeared from our lives with hardly any explanation. No calls, no visits, nothing for 2 years. Then suddenly, there you are on a massive billboard. Do you know how that feels as a mother?" I closed my eyes, imagining the scene, their shock at seeing my face above the highway, the hasty explanation to whoever they were with, the frantic Googling of my company once they arrived at Cassid's house. Had they been impressed, confused, embarrassed they knew nothing about my success? "How did it feel when you skipped my wedding for Cassid's proposal weekend?" I asked quietly, the question hanging in the air. How did it feel to rent a yacht for her engagement, but not attend my ceremony? The line went quiet for several seconds. We made a mistake, she finally admitted, her voice small. We should have been there. Yes, I said, the words coming out steadier than I expected. You should have. But it wasn't a one-time mistake, Mom. It was the culmination of a pattern. A lifetime of being second choice. That's not true. We love both our daughters equally. Please don't lie to me. Not now. She fell silent again. Your father and I want to make amends, she said at last. We want to be part of your life again. Can we meet somewhere, talk face to face? Part of me wanted to refuse, to protect the peace I'd built. But another part, the part that had finally grown secure enough in her own worth, felt ready to face them on new terms. I have a lunch opening next Thursday, I said. There's a cafe near my office called Eastwood. 1:00. We'll be there, she promised, her voice brightening with hope. Should we bring Cassidy? She's been asking about you, too. No, I said firmly. Just you and Dad for now. After hanging up, I sat motionless, absorbing the conversation. Trevor would be concerned when I told him, protective of me and wary of the pain my family could inflict, but he would support whatever decision I made. That certainty felt like a shield against whatever might happen next. Eastwood Cafe occupied the ground floor of a renovated factory building 3 blocks from Zanita's headquarters. Floor-to-ceiling windows filled the space with natural light, while exposed brick walls and wooden beams preserved its industrial history. I'd chosen a deliberately neutral territory, but close enough to my office that I felt secure on my home turf. I arrived 20 minutes early, selecting a corner table that offered privacy without isolation. Megan had cleared my schedule for the afternoon, understanding without explanation that I might need time afterward. My parents entered precisely at 1:00, scanning the cafe until they spotted me. They looked older than I remembered, Dad's hair grayer, Mom's face more lined. They walked toward me with matching expressions of uncertainty, as if approaching a stranger who resembled someone they once knew. Pamela, Dad said as they reached the table. He leaned down awkwardly, as if unsure whether to hug me. I stood and offered my hand instead. He shook it, surprise flashing across his face. Mom made no such pretense, pulling me into an embrace I neither returned nor resisted. You look wonderful, she said, stepping back to examine me. Success suits you. We ordered lunch, a ritual that provided structure to an otherwise uncharted interaction. Small talk carried us through the arrival of our food, neutral comments about the weather, the cafe's interesting decor, the quality of the coffee. Finally, as we finished eating, Dad cleared his throat. Your mother and I owe you an apology, he began. We should have been at your wedding. There's no excuse for missing it, and I'm deeply ashamed of our choice. His directness surprised me. Dad had rarely admitted fault throughout my childhood. We've done a lot of thinking over these past 2 years, Mom added, twisting her napkin in her fingers. About the kind of parents we'd been to you versus Cassidy. We didn't see it then, but looking back. She trailed off. We favored her. We made excuses for treating you differently, but that's what it was. Why? The question escaped before I could consider whether I wanted to hear their answer. They exchanged glances, a silent communication I'd witnessed countless times growing up, always feeling excluded from their private language. Cassidy was easier, Dad admitted. She wanted what we understood. Status, security, traditional success. You always pushed boundaries, Mom continued. Questioned everything, wanted to forge your own path. That scared us. So you just didn't try to understand, I kept my voice even. No, we didn't, Dad agreed, his gaze meeting mine. And we missed out on knowing an extraordinary daughter because of it. The validation I'd craved for so long landed with surprising emptiness. I'd already built my life without their approval. Receiving it now felt like being handed a map after completing the journey. Tell me about your company, Mom said, genuine curiosity in her voice. The billboard said, Wellness Reimagined. What does that mean exactly? For the next 30 minutes, I explained Zanita's mission, our growth trajectory, and my vision for the future. They listened with an attentiveness I'd never experienced from them before, asking thoughtful questions that suggested they'd researched my industry before our meeting. "We're so proud of you," Dad said when I finished. "What you've built is remarkable." "Thank you," I replied, the words feeling foreign on my tongue, accepting their pride after years of seeking it. "We'd like to be part of your life again, Pamela," Mom said, reaching across the table toward my hand, but stopping short of touching me. "If you'll let us." I studied their faces, the hope, the regret, the unfamiliar humility. "I'm not the same person you knew," I told them. "I won't shrink myself to fit your expectations anymore." "We don't want you to," Dad insisted. "We want to know who you really are." "I can't promise anything," I said carefully. "But I'm willing to try a limited reconnection." Holidays are still off the table. No family gatherings with Cassidy yet. Maybe coffee once a month. See how it goes. Relief washed over their faces. They'd clearly expected total rejection. "We'll take whatever you're willing to give," Mom said softly. As we prepared to leave, Dad hesitated. "There's something else. We saw the interviews you've done, talking about your grandmother's influence on your business concept. Juanita's remedies, her journals." I nodded, wondering where he was going with this. "After you cut contact, we cleaned out the attic. We found a box of her things your grandfather sent after she died. There are more journals, some in Chinese, that we couldn't read. Old photographs, letters. We thought you might want them." My throat tightened. "You've had her journals all this time?" "We didn't know they existed until recently," Mom explained hurriedly. "Your grandfather sent them when he moved to the assisted living facility. They've been in storage for years." Dad reached into his briefcase and withdrew a business envelope. "Here's a key to a storage unit we rented downtown. Everything of hers is there. Take it whenever you're ready." I accepted the envelope, my fingers trembling slightly. "Thank you." Outside the cafe, we parted with awkward half-hugs and promises to be in touch. I watched them walk toward the parking garage, their shoulders less rigid than when they had arrived. Instead of returning to the office, I called Trevor. "How did it go?" he asked immediately. "Better than I expected." "Different than I expected." I summarized the conversation as I walked toward our apartment. "They found Grandma Juanita's journals. More of them. Ones I've never seen." Wow. Trevor knew what that meant to me. "Are you going to look at them today?" "No, not yet. I need to process the meeting first." I paused at a crosswalk, watching pedestrians stream past. They seemed genuinely regretful, Trev, and interested in Zanita in a way they never were in my ideas before. "People can change," he said carefully, "especially when forced to face the consequences of their choices." "That's just it," I mused. "I'm not sure if they've changed, or if I have. Maybe both." The crosswalk signal changed, and I stepped into the street. 2 years ago, their approval would have meant everything. Now it's just, nice. Unexpected, but not essential. "Because you've proven your worth to yourself," Trevor said. "That was always the journey, wasn't it? Not convincing them, but convincing you." I smiled, warmth spreading through me at his insight. "When did you get so wise?" "I married an incredible woman who teaches me something new every day." That evening, Trevor and I sat on our balcony, sharing a bottle of wine, watching the city lights emerge as dusk settled. I recounted every detail of the lunch meeting, analyzing their words, their body language, the things left unsaid. "Do you think you'll ever fully reconcile with them?" Trevor asked. I considered the question carefully. "I don't know. I'm not sure what fully reconciled would even look like now. We can't erase the past." "No, but you can write a different future. Maybe a cautious one, with boundaries." I swirled the wine in my glass, watching it catch the light. The strangest part is realizing I don't need their validation anymore. The billboard that caught their attention? I didn't put it up for them. I didn't build Zanita to prove them wrong. I did it for me. And that's why you succeeded, Trevor said, raising his glass. To building a life on your terms. I clinked my glass against his. To the choices that led me here. Later that week, I visited the storage unit alone. The box of my grandmother's belongings sat in the center of the otherwise empty space, a medium-sized trunk with brass fittings, and her name painted in fading gold letters on the side. Inside, I found 12 journals bound in faded leather, photographs I'd never seen, letters exchanged with practitioners around the world, and recipes for remedies passed through generations. The discovery felt like recovering a missing piece of myself. Among the photographs was one I'd never seen, my grandmother standing proudly outside a small clinic in Fuzhou province, dressed in a white coat with a stethoscope around her neck. The back bore an inscription in careful Mandarin characters, which I translated slowly using my rusty language skills. Juanita Lin, Integrated Medicine Practitioner, 1962. Integrated medicine, not just traditional Chinese medicine, as my parents had always described. She'd been practicing the very approach I was now building my business around, decades before Western healthcare began acknowledging its value. Another photo showed her with a group of Western doctors, all smiling as they stood before a banner reading East-West Medical Exchange Program. I spent hours in that storage unit, surrounded by my grandmother's legacy, piecing together the story my parents had either never known or deliberately simplified. Juanita Lin hadn't been merely a traditional healer, clinging to old ways as they'd portrayed her. She'd been a pioneer in integrative medicine, respected enough to participate in international exchange programs, educated in both Eastern and Western approaches. Among her papers, I found correspondence with medical schools in America, letters from research institutions seeking her expertise, even a draft of a textbook chapter she'd contributed to before immigrating. My grandmother, the woman my parents had subtly dismissed as old-fashioned, had been an innovator, a bridge between healing traditions. Tears streamed down my face as I realized what she'd sacrificed by coming to America. She'd given up professional respect, academic connections, and meaningful work, all to give her children, including my father, opportunities she believed they couldn't have in China during that era. Had my father ever known who his mother truly was? Had he understood the depth of her knowledge, the respect she'd commanded in her field? Or had he, like so many children of immigrants, seen only the aspects of her that didn't fit into American life? In the oldest journal, written partly in Mandarin and partly in careful English, I found a passage that seemed meant for me, though written decades before my birth. The path of healing is never straight. It winds through valleys of doubt, climbs mountains of resistance, crosses rivers of fear. But with each step, the healer grows stronger. The true medicine is in the journey itself, in learning to trust what others cannot yet see. I traced my fingers over my grandmother's handwriting, feeling a connection that transcended time and family fractures. Her wisdom had guided me when my parents couldn't. Her belief in holistic healing had shaped my vision when others dismissed it. I carefully packed the most immediately relevant materials into my tote bag, the journals, the photographs, the letters that documented her professional accomplishments. The rest would need to be properly archived, but these pieces would come home with me tonight. Trevor was waiting when I arrived, having prepared dinner, but not wanting to interrupt my discovery process with calls or texts. His eyes widened as I spread the photographs across our dining table. She was incredible, Trev. Not just a traditional healer, like my parents always said. She was doing integrated medicine before it was even a recognized field here. My voice trembled with emotion. She was exactly what they've criticized me for trying to become. He examined the photos, the letters, the journal entries I translated for him. This changes everything for Zanita, doesn't it? I nodded, my mind racing with possibilities. We're not just building on a concept. We're continuing a legacy. These journals contain protocols she developed, combinations she tested, approaches she refined over decades. That night, I couldn't sleep. I sat on our balcony until dawn, reading through my grandmother's journals by the light of a small lamp, taking notes, occasionally gasping at insights that aligned perfectly with recent research findings, connections she'd made 50 years before modern studies confirmed them. The following week, I called an emergency meeting with our product development team. "We need to refocus our formulations," I announced, spreading photocopies of key journal pages across the conference table. "These are my grandmother's original protocols. They're the foundation everything else should build upon." By morning's end, we'd mapped a revised product roadmap. Our head of research and development, Dr. Kira Patel, a Harvard-trained physician who'd become disillusioned with conventional medicine's limitations, practically vibrated with excitement. "These combinations make perfect sense from both biochemical and traditional perspectives," she marveled, studying Juanita's notes. "Your grandmother was decades ahead of her time." The reformulated products launched 2 months later. Customer feedback was immediate and overwhelmingly positive. Users reported more noticeable effects, better outcomes, fewer side effects. Our retention rate, already industry-leading, climbed even higher. The following month, our subscriber count reached 150,000. We launched our specialty line of adaptogenic blends, expanded our telemedicine services, and began preparations for international shipping. 3 new billboards appeared in major markets, and Zanita secured partnerships with 2 hospital systems interested in complementary care approaches. I met my parents for coffee as promised. The conversation flowed more easily than at lunch, though carefully skirting deeper emotional waters. They asked about recent developments with Zanita. I inquired about their lives, their friends, their garden. We didn't mention Cassidy. As we were leaving, Mom handed me a small package wrapped in tissue paper. "What's this?" I asked, hesitating to accept it. "It's the bracelet your grandmother gave me when I married your father," she explained. "I thought you might like to have it for the connection to her." I unwrapped it carefully, a delicate jade bangle with silver inlay, simple yet elegant. "She would have been so proud of you," Mom said softly. "She always said you had her spirit." I slipped the bracelet onto my wrist, surprised by the perfect fit. "Thank you. Will you think about meeting Cassidy?" Dad asked as we reached the door. "She asks about you constantly. Says she misses her sister." The question stirred complicated emotions. Cassidy had been raised to expect preference, but she hadn't created the dynamic between us. We'd both been shaped by our parents' choices. "Not yet," I said, "but maybe someday." Walking back to the office, I reflected on the strange journey that had brought me here. The wedding my family skipped had marked the beginning of my truest life. The pain of their absence had pushed me toward independence I might never have claimed otherwise. The billboard they'd seen by chance represented not just a marketing campaign, but a visual manifestation of everything I'd built in their absence. Their shock at seeing my success displayed so publicly seemed fitting, a reversal of our old dynamic, where I'd always been the one looking up at them, seeking acknowledgement. I touched the jade bracelet at my wrist, thinking of my grandmother's journals and her belief in circular healing. Perhaps this was its own kind of medicine, the slow, careful reconstruction of a relationship that had been fundamentally broken, now with new terms and clearer boundaries. That evening, I added a note to my strategy document for Zanita's next phase of growth: expand community outreach program to include family wellness initiatives. Explore intergenerational approaches to healing family systems. Trevor noticed it while reviewing the document later. "New direction?" he asked. "Not exactly," I replied, thinking of my parents, of Cassidy, of the complex tapestry of hurt and hope that formed our history. Just integrating all parts of the journey. That's what holistic really means, isn't it? Nothing wasted, everything transformed. He squeezed my hand. From rejected wedding invite to industry disruptor. Quite a transformation. "The best revenge isn't cutting people off," I said, understanding it fully only as I spoke the words. "It's becoming so completely yourself that they're forced to see what they missed. Not to hurt them, but to finally be seen." The following week, we confirmed locations for 3 additional billboards. One would stand near my parents' neighborhood, not as a statement or reminder, but simply because the demographics made sense for our target audience. This time, it would not be a surprise when they saw my face above the highway.